Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back in time, not to castles and courtly love, but to cold stone floors, drafty halls, and a reality few dare to romanticize: pregnancy in the Middle Ages. Picture this: a flickering tallow candle, the heavy scent of wool and damp earth, and you lying on a straw-filled mattress in a tiny chamber above a tavern. Your belly is swollen, your back aches, and downstairs, a pig just wandered in and is currently snorting through someone's spilled ale. You think you're about to be pampered, chin, grapes, and whispered sweet nothings like a queen, not even close. You're more likely to be surrounded by gossiping neighbors, a midwife with blood-stained hands, and the very real chance that neither you nor your baby will survive the night. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where pregnancy wasn't just uncomfortable, it was often fatal. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location and your local time in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a village in northern England, around the year 1273. It's late autumn, and the sky is already dark at 4 in the afternoon. Your cloak is thin. Your belly is heavy. You're 5 months pregnant with your fourth child, and if your aching feet weren't enough to remind you, the gossip in the market certainly is. A few women nodded politely, but most looked at you with barely hidden pity. Everyone knows the odds. The last child didn't make it. The one before barely clung to life through the winter. You try not to think about it, but the numbers haunt you. There's no concept of prenatal care. You haven't seen a physician. Frankly, you wouldn't trust one if you had. Most are educated in monasteries with more interest in bleeding and balancing humors than understanding how a womb actually works. If you're lucky, a local wise woman or experienced midwife has checked in, but even she mostly recommends herbs that are supposed to keep the blood warm or drive away the devil. Your husband, well, he's supportive in the way a medieval man can be. He grunts, he works hard, and he prays. But childbirth is women's work. His job was done the moment he passed the seed. Now it's your burden. You walk slowly back to your cottage, careful not to slip in the mud. There's no paved road, just rutted tracks worn down by oxen carts. Inside, smoke curls from the hearth, but the heat never reaches the corners of the room. You kneel beside it and rub your lower back, which has been screaming all day. You try not to let your other children see how tired you are. They're watching always. You eat a simple meal, barley gruel with onions, maybe a scrap of salted fish. There's no concept of nutrition, only what's available and won't rot by next week. You remember hearing something about greens being good for the baby, but it's November. The garden is bare, and what little you preserved is being rationed for the deepest part of winter. At night, the cold bites through the wooden slats. You wake every hour, sometimes to pee, sometimes to the baby kicking, and sometimes just to the sound of mice rustling in the straw. There's no chamber pot. You either stumble out to the latrine or hope the cold floor helps you hold it. Your belly is already getting in the way when you bend over. When you cough, your back spasms. The church tells you that suffering is holy, that pain in childbirth is Eve's punishment. You try to believe it. But there are moments like last night when your hand brushed against blood. You didn't say anything, not even to yourself. You haven't felt the baby move today. You don't cry, there's no room for it. But a whisper of dread follows you around the room, like a draft through the cracks in the walls. You pray harder that night. Not for yourself, really. Just that this baby is strong. The midwife came by yesterday. She checked your pulse quickly and not very skillfully and said you're coming along just fine. She handed you a pouch of dried rosemary and mugwort and told you to tie it under your skirt. Protection from unseen spirits, she said. Her eyes were soft, but her mouth was tight. She's seen too many women like you. She warned you again, don't let a cat near the cradle. Bad luck. Evil omen. It's the kind of advice that makes you feel seen and helpless all at once. The truth is, you're terrified. Not just of the birth itself, but of everything after. If the baby survives, how will you feed it? There's barely enough milk in your breasts for the one you lost last spring. And if you don't survive well, that thought hovers above your bed every night, never saying a word, but never leaving either. At church, the priest reminds everyone that a woman who dies in childbirth dies in a state of grace. He says it like it's a comfort. You're not sure it is. You're 6 months along now. A neighbor's daughter gave birth last week. You heard the screams from down the hill. She was 15. Her baby didn't cry. Neither did she. You sit by the hearth absently rubbing your belly and wonder what it would be like if things were different. If you had warm food. A real doctor. A room with a bed that didn't creak and shift with every breath. But this is the Middle Ages, and you are a woman. This is what's expected. And as the fire dies down and the village settles into its hush, you try to sleep. You try not to dream of blood or cold hands or silent cradles. Tomorrow you'll carry water again. Tomorrow you'll sew another shift for the baby. Tomorrow you'll pretend everything is fine. Because pretending is the only comfort you have left. The next morning starts before the sky lightens. You wake to a chill that clings to your skin like wet linen, your breath fogging in the cold air. Your legs ache from where you slept, curled knees drawn up to relieve the strain on your back. But sleep was a luxury, and now it's over. You hear the soft clatter of chickens outside, the creak of the roof timbers in the wind, and the scrape of your husband pulling on his boots. There is no time for softness, no moment to cradle your growing stomach and dream of lullabies. The children need food, the animals need feeding, and if you want water, you'll have to fetch it yourself. There's no tap, no well nearby, just the frozen trail that leads down to the stream a quarter-mile away. You pull on your wool wrap threadbare and patched and brace yourself against the door. The air outside is like a slap. Your fingers sting before you even get to the gate. Every step down the path jostles your swollen belly, sending sharp little aches through your lower spine. You pause more than once, leaning against a fence post, pretending to look at the horizon while you catch your breath. At the stream, the ice along the edge has to be broken with a rock. The bucket is heavy on the return trip, and more than once you think of simply leaving it behind. But the children need something warm for their bellies and tea, if it can even be called that needs water. You carry it home slowly, hips grinding, breath short, and when you finally set it down inside the doorway, it sloshes over and soaks your boots. No one thanks you. This is your role. This is expected. As you stir the pot of millet and dried cabbage over the fire, the baby finally kicks. Not the fluttering kind like before, but a slow, twisting grind that makes you pause mid-stir. You place a hand over your stomach and close your eyes. You say nothing aloud, but a small part of you whispers, "Still here, still here." After breakfast, you sit with your mending darning socks that are more whole than fabric and listen to the muffled sounds of village life. Horses clip-clopping past. The crier calling something about a man being fined for stealing wheat. a dog barking distant and angry. This world doesn't pause for you. Pregnancy isn't treated like a miracle here. It's just part of the cycle. You are expected to endure it, survive it, and get back to work as soon as possible. There's no prenatal leave, no resting for the baby. You're still expected to tend the fire, gather herbs, care for the sick, and cook for the household, even if your body is swollen and sore. And if you so much as grimace when standing, someone will remind you that God made you for this. A phrase that echoes in your ears like a curse. The midwife stops by again. This time she brings a bowl of crushed rue and fennel, tells you to boil it and breathe in the steam to strengthen your lungs for labor. You nod. You thank her. But deep down you know these treatments are little more than hope wrapped in ritual. Some might help. Most are powerless against infection, hemorrhage, or a breech birth. She glances at your ankles, now puffed and purple. Tells you to elevate them, but you both know you won't. There's no furniture for that. The best you can do is prop them up on a stool after dinner for 10 minutes before someone needs something. The baby kicks again, later harder this time. You freeze in the middle of sweeping one hand on your belly, one hand gripping the broomstick. The fear never really leaves. Each movement feels like a mystery. Is this normal, or is something wrong? You have no way of knowing. There's no book to check, no doctor to consult. Just stories whispered between women, some who survived birth and some who didn't. And the stories, they stay with you, like the one about the miller's wife who bled for 2 days and was buried in the snow behind the chapel. Or the girl from the next hamlet over whose baby was born with its cord wrapped around its neck, who was said to have been cursed by the moon. No one says these things directly. They speak in riddles and superstitions. Don't look at a fire too long, or the baby will have red eyes. Don't eat berries during your 6th month, or the baby will be born with spots. Don't anger a stranger, or you'll bring misfortune on the child's soul. You try not to believe these things, but in the dark, with the wind howling and your thoughts racing, it's hard not to wonder. That night, as you lie in bed again, curled on your side, knees throbbing, a slow cramp curls low in your abdomen. You breathe through it. You count. 1, 2, 3. Then it passes. Probably just the bread, or maybe the lifting. You remind yourself that women have done this for centuries, but you also remember how many of them didn't make it. Sleep comes in fits. You dream of warm baths you've never taken, of babies you've never held. You dream of silence, and not the peaceful kind, the kind that follows a scream. In the morning, you'll carry on. Of course you will. That's what women do here. That's what they've always done. But tonight, in the dark, beneath a roof made of splintered beams and prayer, you hold your belly with both hands and whisper to the baby, just wait a little longer. Just stay with me. The next few days blend into each other as they always do. There are no calendars nailed to the wall, no countdowns to your due date, just the slow swell of your belly and the tightening of your skin. You measure time by the length of shadows, the phases of the moon, and the ache in your joints when you rise each morning. It's snowing today. Not a flurry, but a real fall, soft and relentless. The thatched roof is already heavy with it, and the draft sneaking under the door has a sharpness that bites at your ankles. You wrap an extra layer of linen around your midsection and set about your morning work. You have no choice. Today, it's your turn to help grind oats at the communal mill. You shuffle there slowly, one hand supporting your back, the other carrying the sack. Inside it smells of dust and sweat, and the sound of the turning stones drowns out conversation. You nod to the others, some pregnant like you, some not, and begin the laborious task of feeding grain into the chute, cranking the handle with aching arms. The work is repetitive, bone-deep exhausting, but you don't complain. No one does. Complaining only earns you scorn, or worse, superstition. A woman who moans too much during pregnancy is said to curse her child with weakness. So you bite your lip and press on, though your back feels as though it might snap in two. When you finally return home, you're soaked to the knees. Your feet are raw from the cold, and your hands shake as you stir the fire back to life. The children greet you hungry as always. You give them porridge and a few dried apples, managing a tired smile even as your womb feels like it's clenching with every breath. The baby hasn't kicked today. Not once. You lie back, shift your position, drink hot broth. You poke at your belly, whispering softly. Still nothing. You try to stay calm. You felt this before. Maybe the baby is just resting. Maybe it's turned. Maybe it's a sign. You tell yourself this over and over while your stomach churns and your throat closes in the quiet of the evening. When your husband returns, he smells of smoke and frozen wood. He eats in silence, thanks you for the meal with a grunt, and settles by the fire to repair a broken boot. You want to ask him if he remembers what the midwife said last time, if he remembers what it was like when you lost the second child, the silence in the room, the sound your body made after the baby slipped away. But you don't ask. There's no space for that here. Instead, you rub oil into your skin, the one thing the midwife insisted would ease the stretch and pain. It smells of time and something sharp. You focus on that, on the ritual of it, on the warmth it brings to your hands, if not your heart. Later that night, a neighbor woman comes calling. She's older, with a face like creased parchment, and a mouth that speaks more in grunts than words. She heard you'd been quiet. She sits without asking and takes your hand, placing it on your belly. She waits. 5 long minutes. Then a movement, a tiny flutter like the brushing of wings. It's enough. You exhale and feel the tears before they fall hot and unwanted. The woman doesn't say anything. She simply nods, gets up, and leaves you there with the silence. Relief is a strange thing in this place. It doesn't come with trumpets or cheers, just a single exhale, a loosening of your shoulders, a small, quiet thank you whispered to the dark. But the fear doesn't leave. It never does. You think about how close you are now. The baby is heavy. The pressure in your pelvis makes walking feel like dragging a stone between your legs. Sleep is nearly impossible. When you lie down, you can't breathe. When you sit up, you feel faint. You prop yourself against the wall at night, listening to the owl outside your window. Some say owls are omens. You try not to believe that. But it hoots 3 times. And then again. You tell yourself it's just a bird. Just a bird. The next morning you wake to blood. It's not much, but it's bright. You don't scream. You don't even gasp. You simply sit very still, legs folded beneath you, eyes fixed on the smear in the straw. Then you move, slowly, carefully. You wash with cold water, change your underlinen, and cover the blood with ashes from the hearth. You don't tell anyone. Not yet. Instead, You spend the day gathering kindling with your eldest daughter, who chatters about birds and frost, and the dream she had last night. You nod, but you don't really hear her. You're counting each moment, measuring each cramp, wondering if this is it or just another warning. By nightfall, you feel the weight of something inevitable pressing down on you, like the low-hanging clouds. You prepare extra cloths. You boil water. You pull out the herbs the midwife left last time. You kiss your children goodnight, with a little more weight behind it. And then you sit by the fire, hands resting on your belly, and you wait. Every movement now is a question. Every silence is a scream waiting to happen. And still, no one knows what's coming. Not even you. The night deepens like a shadow pulling over the world, thick and breathless. You sit upright, spine curved like a bowstring, while the rest of the cottage slumbers. The fire has shrunk to embers, casting long, twitching shadows on the walls, and every little creak of the rafters sets your heart beating faster. You're counting again. 1 tightening. 2. A pause. Then nothing. Maybe it was just gas. Maybe just fear. But your body knows, even before your mind can name it. Something has shifted. Your thighs feel damp again. You rise to check, more blood this time. Darker. Sticky. This isn't just a sign. This is a message. You stoke the fire, careful not to wake the children, and step outside into the freezing dark. The village is silent, the air still. Your boots crunch through the frost, each step measured your breath shallow and white. You make your way to the midwife's cottage at the edge of the fields. No candle glows in the window yet. You knock once, then again. It takes her a long time to answer. She appears wrapped in wool hair, loose face lined with sleep, and something like worry. You don't need to say much. Just, it's time. She nods and disappears inside to gather what she needs: clean linen, boiled wine, iron scissors, thread, and her herbs. You see her hands tremble as she packs. She's seen enough of these nights to know that every birth is a roll of the dice. Back at your cottage, your husband is stirring groggy and sighed. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't need to. He takes the children to the neighbors, says only, "It's starting," and vanishes into the dawn fog. Now it's just you and the midwife. She helps you lie on the floor by the fire where the rushes have been pushed back, and a rough pallet spread out. You grip the edge of the wooden stool, knees bent. Sweat already starting to bead across your forehead, though the air is still ice cold. Your breath comes fast, then slower, then fast again. Time begins to blur. The pain hasn't even peaked yet, but your body is already remembering every ache, every tear from the last time. The midwife feeds you a spoonful of honey steeped in sage and whispers, "Stay with me." You nod, jaw clenched. Then the first real contraction hits. It's not just pain, it's fire. It begins deep and radiates outward through your spine, your hips, your thighs. You cry out before you even realize it. The midwife is pressing your hand hard, grounding you. Hours pass. They must. Though it feels like time has collapsed entirely. You sweat. You scream. You sob. You vomit into the ash bucket, and then curl into yourself, shivering with exhaustion. There is no soft music, no sterile room, no reassuring monitor beeping along with your baby's heartbeat. Just the snap of the fire, the wet sounds of your laboring body, and the midwife's occasional murmur of encouragement or instruction. Breathe. Push now. Not yet. Your body responds like a storm, obeying the moon, violent, unstoppable. At some point, you hear yourself begging, not in words, just noises, desperate, primal. The pain makes your vision flicker. The floor swims. There's blood, so much blood already. You want to stop, but you can't. And then, the midwife goes still. Her hand presses hard to your belly. She leans down to listen, eyes narrowed. "The baby's turned," she says, voice low, not panicked, but not calm either. "It's sideways. Your blood runs cold. You've heard what that means. You've heard the stories. They don't end well. Not for the baby, not for the mother, not unless the midwife is very skilled or very lucky. The pain doesn't stop to let you process that. It crashes over you again, a tidal wave pulling you under. You feel her fingers inside trying to shift the baby's position. You scream, nearly bite your own tongue. She murmurs apologies and commands at once, but you don't hear them. Your whole body is fire. More time passes. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. You don't know. But then something changes. A shift. A push. And suddenly the midwife is yelling. Now you push with everything you have. Once. Twice. 3 times. You think your body is breaking. Your hips feel as if they're being split apart. Your breath tears from your lungs in great heaves, your throat raw. And then, the silence. It's deafening. You know in that moment that something is wrong. You don't hear a cry. You don't hear the midwife's usual words of relief. Just a pause. Then she moves fast. You hear her slapping tiny feet, blowing air, whispering things you can't make out. And then a sound. A whimper. Not a full cry, but something. A gasp. A flicker of life. You exhale a breath you didn't know you'd been holding. She wraps the baby in cloth blood-stained but warm and places it against your chest. You look down. The baby is red and bruised but breathing. Tiny, fragile, real. You cry. You laugh. You can't tell the difference. But the pain isn't over. You still have to deliver the afterbirth, and as the midwife works, you feel a sudden rush of wetness and heat. More blood, too much. You see the look on her face, and she presses down on your belly hard, muttering something under her breath. You feel a tearing inside. Something cold. You fade in and out. The world goes gray at the edges. The fire dims. Your ears ring. You hear her call your name once, twice, and then darkness. You float for a while in a strange, silent place. There's no pain here, no weight, no sound but your own shallow breath, which seems to echo like wind across an empty moor. Your body is gone. You are thought alone, unanchored, drifting. Then light. Not a heavenly light, not the kind the priest describes when he speaks of passing into God's arms, but the golden flickering hue of firelight, dim and shaky, dancing along the beams of your ceiling. You blink slowly. The rafters come into focus. Your lips are dry. Your whole body feels like a collapsed bridge, every support beam shattered. And yet, you're here. You survived. The baby is beside you, wrapped tightly in linen, still sleeping. Tiny fists curled under a chin that looks more like your own than you ever imagined. The midwife is nodding off in a stool near the fire. Her apron smeared with blood, her face pale and drawn. She looks older now. You wonder if you do too. Your husband sits in the corner, hands wrapped around a cup, staring at the fire. His expression is unreadable, not joy, not sorrow, but something deeper. Shell shock, a quiet reckoning. You try to speak, but your throat is dry as ashes. You swallow hard. I'm still here, you whisper, and the words sound foreign in your own ears. He turns to you then, slowly. He doesn't smile, he just blinks like he's seeing you for the first time. Then he nods, rises, and kneels at your side. He places a rough hand on your forehead, and for the first time in what feels like years, you see tears in his eyes. The midwife wakes and rises silently. She checks the baby, you nods with satisfaction and exhaustion. She mutters something about stitches, but says it can wait. You've lost a lot of blood. You need broth. Sleep. No movement for at least a day. No lifting. No walking. You nod like you agree, but deep down you know it won't be that simple. There is no recovery period in this world. By the second day, you're sitting upright again, baby at your breast. Milk is slow to come, and when it does, it's thin. You're weak, dizzy, but the baby feeds tiny mouth, tugging at you with surprising strength. Each pull feels like a thread unraveling deep inside you. You grit your teeth and let it happen. No one tells you about this part, how the pain doesn't end when the baby is born, how your body keeps cramping, bleeding, breaking down in small, invisible ways. You're still leaking clots, still feverish at night. Your stomach has collapsed like a broken drum, bruised and tender. You haven't gone to the privy yet, too scared. You're not sure what you'll find. The midwife returns once a day. She checks your stitching with a serious face and mutters about binding your belly tighter. She leaves a pot of comfrey and yarrow to steep and instructs your husband to heat it and wash you twice daily. You both know that probably won't happen. He's already gone half the day hauling wood to replace the wages he missed while you labored. You try to rest. You do. But your other children still need feeding. The cottage needs sweeping. The baby cries every 2 hours, and your breasts are cracked and raw from nursing. You bite down on cloth to keep from screaming when he latches. By the 4th day, your neighbor stops by with food. She sits beside you without asking and tells a story about her first labor, how she bled into the straw and thought she'd never stand again. She hands you a small flask of ale, strong and bitter, and tells you to sip it when the pain gets sharp. It's what we have, she says. It dulls things. You sip it that night, not too much, just enough to make the edges of the world soften. And for a few hours, you sleep deeply. In the dreams, you're running barefoot through a field, your belly flat, your legs strong. There's no baby in your arms. You're alone, free. You wake up sweating, confused, guilty. Then the baby wails and the guilt turns to purpose. You rock him in your arms and hum a lullaby you barely remember, something your mother used to sing. The words are half forgotten, but the melody remains. You hum even as your tears fall. Weeks pass, slowly, painfully. Your body begins to knit itself back together, though never fully. You'll always limp slightly when it's cold. Your back will always ache on long walks. And your heart will never be quite the same. The baby grows. His eyes open. He stares up at you like you're the whole world. And maybe you are. The midwife no longer visits. The food gifts stop. The village returns to its rhythm, and you begin again. back to gathering kindling, back to tending the fire, back to soaking blood from linen in the cold stream. And if you cry when no one's watching, the wind carries it away. No one asks you about the birth. No one wants the details. Not the tearing, not the blood, not the fear. You carry those alone like so many women before you. And when your monthly bleeding doesn't return by spring, you know it's happened again. You're pregnant, again. And this time you don't feel fear first, or joy, or dread. Just numbness. Because you know what's ahead, and you know what it will cost. And still you will do it. Because this is your life. This is your sentence. And no one ever asked if you agreed to it. The days stretch longer now, though not easier. Spring thaw turns the roads to thick rivers of mud, and you trudge through them with aching legs and a belly just beginning to swell again. The baby, your last baby, is teething now, his cries shrill and constant. You hold him with one arm while the other churns, butter grinds barley, or rocks the cradle. There's no pause, no soft landing. You've barely healed before you're already breaking open again. Pregnancy after pregnancy, no time to recover between. You've started to forget what your body felt like before it was a vessel. When you weren't sore. When your chest didn't ache. When your thighs didn't burn at the thought of climbing a hill. There are moments you look in the stream and don't recognize the face that stares back. Hollow-eyed. Bruised under the skin. 30 years old, but weathered like you're 50. And yet no one calls it suffering. They call it service. Duty. They call it God's will. Your neighbor loses her child to fever that same week. A girl no more than 2. You go with her to the churchyard, the baby strapped to your chest, another growing inside. The priest mutters prayers over a hole in the ground, and you watch your neighbor's face twist into something quiet and unchanging. Not rage, not even sorrow, just resignation. She doesn't cry. You wonder if you would. The burial is brief. Life has no time to grieve when it moves this fast, when everyone knows another child could be lost by week's end. Later she tells you she'll try again. Maybe next time it'll be a boy. And you nod. Because what else is there to say? In the village there's talk of a new lord taking over the manor nearby. He's rumored to be kinder, more generous with taxes, less cruel with justice. But you've heard those rumors before. Lords don't live in the world you live in. They ride past you on horses that eat better than your family. They don't know the stink of childbirth or the color of feverish skin. You think sometimes of the high-born ladies, the ones who give birth on soft beds surrounded by maids and herbs and prayers. But even they don't escape the danger. You heard once of a noblewoman who died after giving birth to twins bled out before the midwives could even light the fire. Death does not care how fine your sheets are. But at least their children survive more often. At least they rest afterward. You dream of rest more than anything. Not sleep rest. The kind where your shoulders finally relax, where your name isn't followed by, can you or you must. Your children cling to your skirts as you walk always hungry, always sticky with jam or dirt or both. Your eldest tries to help. She's 10 now. Her hands are clever. She rocks the cradle with one foot while gutting fish with quick fingers. You want better for her, but you know better than to wish too hard. Wishing is dangerous. Wishing means imagining something outside this life. And imagining hurts when reality is so unyielding. The midwife visits again when your belly starts to swell, obviously. She looks at you with something like sadness this time. Already she asks. You shrug. What can you say? She examines you carefully, tells you it feels different, deeper. You nod, unsure whether that's good or bad. She gives you dried raspberry leaves and tells you to start drinking them early. Maybe they'll help. Maybe. That's always the word maybe. This time your husband speaks more. He's quieter lately, more present. He tries to help carry buckets, tries to mend your shoes. But he also watches you differently, like he knows you're nearing a line, and he doesn't know what's on the other side of it. One night when the children are asleep and the fire's nearly out, he says it. I don't want to lose you. You freeze. He rarely speaks from the heart. You turn to him, startled. He's not looking at you. He's looking at the baby sleeping in the cradle, his tiny chest rising and falling like the tide. You nod. You want to tell him you don't want to lose yourself either. That each pregnancy takes something from you that never fully returns, that you feel like a fading echo. But the words stay in your mouth. Instead, you whisper, we'll be all right. A lie, but a gentle one. Because what else can you offer? Another month passes. The child in your belly moves often, kicks stronger than the last. You feel them at night, turning and flipping like they're already trying to escape the world waiting for them. You talk to the baby more than you mean to. Whisper names, wishes, warnings. Don't be born in the night. Don't come when the river floods. Don't wait until I'm alone. Sometimes you press your hand against the curve of your stomach and wonder if they can hear you, if they'll remember your voice when they first open their eyes. And sometimes you ask the question you never dare say aloud. What if this one lives, but I don't? You try not to think about that question, but it clings to you. It follows you down the muddy trail to the stream, through the village square, where pigs root through refuse and even into your dreams. Every time you feel the baby move, there's a flicker of something between hope and dread. The midwife says you're strong, that your body remembers, that it's easier the more children you bear. But you know better. The others have aged you, worn your bones, softened your teeth, thinned your blood. You're not stronger, you're just more used to pain. And the pain has changed. It's sharper this time, lower. When you walk too far, it flares like fire through your hips. At night, your legs cramp so hard, you wake biting your sleeve. Some mornings your hands tremble from the sheer exhaustion of holding yourself together. But there's still no choice. The chickens must be fed. The firewood must be split. You still have to knead dough and wash cloths and boil water for the sick. The village healer fell ill last week, and now they're asking you who can barely carry your own child, to tend the coughs and fevers that spread like mist through the valley. You do it, because they need you, because it's what women do. The church bell rings early one morning. Someone has died. You don't know who until you see the cart roll through the square with a covered body inside. It's a young woman, a girl really, newlywed, pregnant. They say she slipped and fell while carrying water, that the baby came too early and there was no one to help. No one heard her cry. The entire village goes quiet that day. Even the crows don't call. You light a candle for her that night. It flickers beside the fire, thin and frail, like you. Like every woman who walks this narrow line between life and death every time a child stirs inside her. You wake sweating again, this time not from dreams, but from heat. Summer has arrived, heavy and still. The cottage traps the warmth like a kiln. Your skin is sticky, your breasts ache, your ankles are swollen and puffy, your belly now so large you can barely bend to wipe your feet. Your husband tries to fan the air near you, tries to help with the cooking. He even brings home willow bark, says the priest blessed it, to ease your pain. You take it not because you believe in the blessing, but because it's something. A gesture, a moment where the burden doesn't feel quite so lonely. One evening you sit outside the baby in your belly kicking up a storm, and you stare at the orange line of sun disappearing behind the trees. You think of all the other women who have sat like this, waiting, watching, wondering if they'll make it to see the next sunset. Your eldest daughter sits beside you. She braids rushes into a crude little crown and places it on your head. You look like the queen, she says with a grin. You don't have the heart to tell her that queens die in childbirth too, so you laugh and press a kiss to her forehead. And for a moment, you let yourself believe it. That maybe you are a queen. That maybe you are strong enough. That night, the cramps start again. At first, they're spaced apart, just a tightening every hour or so, like the baby testing the door. You don't tell anyone. You keep your silence like a secret talisman. You stir the stew. You rock the baby. You breathe through the pain. By midnight, they come every 20 minutes, then 15, then 10. You send your husband to fetch the midwife. Your body is shaking. You sit on the edge of the bed, palms on your knees, rocking back and forth. You pray not in words, but in breath, in rhythm, in sheer stubborn will. The midwife returns. She says little this time. Her eyes are sharper now. She moves with purpose, with a kind of quiet fear that she doesn't speak aloud. She checks you and frowns. It's early, she mutters. You know what that means. It means the baby might not be ready. It means your body might not be either. She gives you a cloth soaked in herbs, tells you to bite down when the pain comes. You nod. You don't cry. Not yet. Because you still believe, maybe foolishly, that this time will be different. That this time the baby will come quick. That this time you'll survive without tearing, without fever, without that hollow drifting place you slipped into before. The first real contraction makes your knees buckle. You drop to the floor. The midwife is already spreading cloths, heating water. Your husband paces outside, pretending not to listen. The children sleep at the neighbors again. The pain is not new, but it feels deeper now. It feels like your whole body is cracking open like the earth before a quake. You scream, not because you're afraid, but because it feels like the only sound the world will understand right now. The midwife grips your hand. It's time, she says. And all you can think is, please, let this not be the end of me. You brace yourself against the wooden stool, knees wide, feet digging into the floor, like roots gripping the earth. The contraction rips through you like a scythe, no warning, no mercy. Your breath is gone before you can catch it, your voice ragged with a cry so sharp it startles even the fire into silence. The midwife is speaking soft, quick phrases meant to calm you, but the words barely land. All you can hear is the pounding of blood in your ears, the raw thunder of your own body folding in on itself. This is what it means to be a vessel, to become less than a person and more of a passage. You are the doorway. And right now, that doorway is fire. Your waters break. The warmth rushes down your legs, pooling into the straw, soaking through linen. The smell is sharp iron salt earth. The midwife checks the flow, her brow furrowed. She says nothing. That says everything. Another wave hits, and this time you scream without shame. The midwife's hands are strong on your thighs, holding you in place, grounding you while the storm rages in your womb. You must push. You know. God, you know. But your body is a battlefield. Every part of you is torn between survival and surrender. The room is spinning. The shadows stretch long and strange across the walls. You think of your children. Your daughter braiding rushes your son with jam on his cheeks. You think of the grave in the churchyard, the one no one visits anymore. You think of the girl who slipped with the water bucket. You push. The pain slices through your spine like lightning. You grip the stool so hard your knuckles split. The midwife murmurs something encouragement maybe, but your ears are full of static now. Your head swims. You think you might faint, but you push again and again. There's blood. So much blood. The midwife is moving faster now. You can see the tension in her shoulders. She's trying not to frighten you. It's too late for that. Then a cry. Not yours. The baby. It's thin and high and beautiful in a way only something raw and alive can be. You gasp once, then collapse backward, dizzy with shock and exhaustion. But the midwife doesn't hand you the baby. She's frowning, focused. The cord is wrapped around its neck. She works quickly, silently. Her fingers move like she's done this 100 times. Maybe she has. Still, her mouth is tight. You try to rise, but your limbs are jelly-soaked and trembling. You can't help. You can only watch. Then the cry again, louder this time, angrier. A wail that fills the room and pierces your chest like sunlight. The midwife smiles just slightly. She wraps the baby in a cloth and lays it on your chest. You look down. A girl. Red, wrinkled eyes squeezed shut, fists tight like she's ready to fight the world already. You stroke her tiny face with fingers that barely work, tears slipping down your temples. She's here, you whisper. But the midwife doesn't relax. Because it's not over. The afterbirth still hasn't come. Your body clenches again, not with contractions this time, but something sharper, more unnatural. The midwife presses on your belly and you scream. Blood gushes, thick, too much. She curses under her breath and orders your husband to bring more cloth. He stumbles in pale-faced hands, shaking. You're fading again. The world goes white. Then dim. The baby is lifted from your arms. You don't want to let go, but you have no strength left. She's crying a ragged little shriek, and it's the only thing keeping you tethered to this life. The midwife works fast. She packs herbs, presses linen against you. Your body jerks. You vomit into a bucket. You feel your pulse in your teeth, in your ears, in your womb. Then darkness. Not complete. Not like last time, but the edges of the world blur. Your thoughts run like water over stone. You hear voices, but they don't belong to anyone you recognize. The pain dulls. Or maybe you're just too far from it now. You lie back. You breathe. Barely. Then something shifts. The pressure changes. The bleeding slows. The midwife mutters thanks to saints you stopped praying to long ago. Your eyes flutter open. The fire is low. Your husband sits nearby, the baby swaddled and calm in his arms. The midwife is washing her hands, her apron soaked through. She looks at you. She nods. "You'll live," she says. Just 2 words, but they land like a miracle. You try to speak, but your throat is raw, so you just cry instead, quietly, fully. She brings the baby back to you, lays her at your breast. Her mouth finds you instinctively. The latch hurts, but not like before. This time it feels like a thread stitching you back into the world. You hold her close. She's so small, so real. And even though your body feels like it's been shattered into 1,000 pieces, you survived. Again. But deep down you know there's a limit to how many times a woman can survive. Herself. The days that follow are not a celebration. There are no flowers, no warm congratulations, no whispered poems about the miracle of life. There is only sore flesh, cracked skin, damp cloths, stained rust red, and the relentless task of living again. Your legs tremble when you stand. Your breasts ache heavy and full, leaking through your shift before each feeding. The baby cries often. She's healthy, they say, loud lungs, strong grip, but her hunger is endless. And your body, still so recently split open, now has to nourish hers. You try to rest, but rest is for people with help. For women who can afford a wet nurse or a servant or a grandmother to rock the child while they sleep. You have none of that. Just your husband, well-meaning, but clumsy, and your eldest, still too small to carry such weight. She does her best fetching water-warming broth, keeping the other children out from underfoot. But you see it in her eyes, the fatigue, the way her hands have grown calloused far too young. Sometimes when the baby sleeps and the others are occupied, you sit in the doorway and stare at the road. There's nothing special about it, just mud and hoof prints, but it leads away. Somewhere. Anywhere. And you imagine for a moment what it would feel like to follow it. To walk with no baby on your hip, no belly dragging you down, no name that's spoken only when someone needs something. But the baby cries again, and the fantasy dies before it takes root. You press her to your chest, hum that half-remembered lullaby again. It's more for you than for her. The midwife stops by less and less. You can tell she's relieved you survived. You can also tell she didn't expect you to. The way she looks at you now, like someone walking away from a lightning strike. Lucky, yes, but not unchanged. She warns you to rest more, warns you not to lift heavy buckets, to avoid cold wind, to drink broth with herbs she leaves in a pouch. But she knows, and you know, you won't do any of those things, because no one else will. By the 3rd week, the bleeding slows. You're able to walk without pain. Your stomach is loose, sagging, striped with marks, but you've learned not to hate it. It's simply what a body looks like after it's carried death and palmolive in the same breath. You return to your chores slowly, first sweeping, then kneading, then scrubbing pots with ash and sand. The world doesn't wait for mothers to heal. The cows still need milking. The fire still needs tending. The laundry won't wash itself, even if your hands are raw from the cold water. The baby is growing, her cries sharper, her fists stronger. She begins to smile, though it's still fleeting, still twitchy and uncertain. You catch one while nursing, and it makes you cry so hard, you wake the other children. They ask why, but you don't explain. How could you? How do you explain that the curve of your newborn's mouth made you remember you're still alive? You try to be grateful. Some women don't make it this far. Some babies don't either. But gratefulness is complicated. Because for every moment of wonder, every fluttering laugh, every chubby hand wrapped around your finger, there's also fear. Deep, bone-aching fear. That this could be the last. That your luck is wearing thin. And people talk. They always do. You overhear them at the market. She's had 5 now, poor thing. I heard she almost bled to death with the last one. She won't last another. You pretend not to hear. You barter for dried beans, patch a hole in your shawl, smile tightly, and walk away. But the words follow you home. At night, your husband watches you nurse the baby, his face unreadable. He tries to touch you once, to run his fingers down your arm. You flinch. You don't mean to. But you do. He withdraws without a word. Later he says it quietly, staring into the fire. I don't want more children. You nod. Neither do you. But it's not up to you, is it? There is no control, no choice. Just rhythms of the moon, of fate, of luck. Herbs can help, but they fail as often as they work. And asking a man to wait, to refrain, to consider your broken body, that's not something this world teaches. The church says your duty is to be fruitful, to multiply, that your womb is a holy gift. You try not to scream at the idea. Instead, you press your lips to the baby's head and try to believe that love is enough to keep you going. But you know somewhere deep, unspoken, you won't survive another. You feel it in your bones, in your blood. The next time, if there is a next time, you won't come back. And yet, each morning you rise. Each night you nurse. And somehow you still manage to laugh when your daughter brings you a flower with half its petals chewed away by bugs. Because this is what you do. You carry life and pain and silence, and no one ever taught you how to stop. The summer passes in a haze of smoke and sweat. The air is thick with the scent of sun-baked manure and boiling stew of linen drying on lines and infants crying through open windows. Your days bleed into one another, as indistinct as the smudged marks of soot on your apron. The baby is teething now, fussing through the nights, biting through cloth, your finger, her own hands. You soothe her with cold spoons, with mashed roots, with lullabies that turn into whispers halfway through. Your breasts are sore and cracked. You wince when she latches, but you smile anyway. She doesn't know pain yet. That innocence is a fleeting luxury you want her to enjoy for as long as she can. Your eldest daughter starts bleeding for the first time. She hides it from you for a day, thinking it's some illness. When you discover the stains, she cries not from pain, but fear. You remember that fear. You remember being 12, frightened and cold, with no one to explain why your body had suddenly turned into a promise you never made. You explain as gently as you can. You tell her she's healthy, that this is normal. You do not tell her the rest. That this means she can now be wed. That in the eyes of men and God and law, her childhood has already ended. That night, she clings to you while you rock the baby. She doesn't speak. You don't ask. Her silence is loud enough. Your husband says nothing when you mention it, just nods once and returns to mending a broken tool. You know he hears. You know he's thinking about what this means too. The whispers have already started. You should speak to the carpenter's wife, someone said at market. Their eldest son is of age. He's 14. Your daughter is just a girl. You swallow the rage. You've learned to live with it. You've learned to carry it the same way you carry the baby, the laundry, the grief. tucked under one arm, never allowed to fall. You try the herbal teas the midwife left you, pennyroyal tansy, wild carrot seed, bitter, metallic, strange. She says they might prevent another child. You drink them with hope and fear wrapped in equal measure. But even that hope feels dangerous. Hope means imagining a future where your body is your own, and you've spent too long learning the opposite. Autumn begins to creep into the edges of the leaves. The wind shifts. You wake one morning and feel it, that whisper of cold on the back of your neck, the first sign of change. You wrap the baby tighter. You boil the blankets. You prepare as you always do for another long winter. But your body feels strange. You tell yourself it's nothing, just the strain, the lack of sleep, the worry about your daughter, the baby's weight on your hips and shoulders. Then your monthly bleeding doesn't come. You wait a week, 2. You chew bitter herbs until your mouth goes numb. You pray not for a miracle, but for a sign that your womb is empty. But the sickness starts, in the mornings first, then at night, then always. You don't tell anyone. You can't. Not yet. You hide it well. You've done this before. You smile through the nausea. You nod when the neighbor asks if you're well. You carry the baby as though your knees aren't about to buckle. You cook clean and sew as if your hands aren't trembling from exhaustion. But every night, when you lie on the straw mattress with your baby curled beside you, you press your hand to your stomach and whisper, "No. Please no." Because you know. You feel it already. The shift, the weight, the ache in your lower back that won't go away. Another child, another wound waiting to open. You think about leaving. Not really, but the thought flits across your mind like a bird trapped in a chimney. Could you run? Where would you go? What would you eat? Who would take you in? You know the answers. No one. There is no escape from the body you live in, the body that has become a machine, a vessel, a sentence. You tell the midwife finally. She doesn't speak at first, just nods and places a hand over yours. "You're strong," she says. "You want to scream. You don't want to be strong. You want to be safe." But instead, you nod and sip the tea she offers. You lie to your husband, not because he wouldn't care, but because you don't want him to see the panic behind your eyes. Not yet. Not again. Your daughter watches you carefully. She knows. Children always know. She offers to take over the washing. You let her. One evening, as you brush her hair beside the hearth, she asks you, "Will it be like before?" You don't answer. You can't. Because you don't know if you'll survive this one. And even if you do, what part of you will be left? The first snowfall arrives early, blanketing the village in a silence that's too thick to be peaceful. The roofs groan under its weight. The hearths smoke heavier, and the chickens refuse to leave their coops. Inside your world narrows even further, to the radius of firelight, to the ache in your knees, to the quiet shifts of your own betraying body. You are with child again. That is the truth. You've stopped denying it, though you still haven't spoken the words aloud. The midwife knows. She doesn't need confirmation. She brings you bundles of wool and insists you stop carrying anything heavier than the baby. But how? Who else will lift? Who else will cook? Who else will rock the cradle through the windstorms that howl like wild dogs through the valley? Even your daughter is different now. Since her bleeding began, she's grown quieter, older. She watches you the way you used to watch your mother, trying to learn how to survive in silence. You wonder what future you've handed her. You wonder if it's already too late to save her from it. Your husband has been working longer hours, offering his help to the smith and the thatcher, and even the merchant whose ox lost a shoe. He comes home late, sore and silent. Not unkind, just weary. You both are. He knows you're pregnant. You haven't told him, but he knows. It sits between you like steam from the fire, visible, warm, suffocating. Sometimes he touches your arm and opens his mouth like he's going to say something. But nothing comes. Instead, he brings you a bowl of stew, a fresh piece of cloth, or a handful of walnuts wrapped in paper. He tries. But neither of you have words for this kind of grief. Grief before the loss has even happened. And it is grief. You don't feel joy, or excitement, or even fear, not the sharp electric kind. What you feel now is cold, low, steady, a creeping dread that coils beneath your ribs and whispers this will be the end of you. You move slower now. The baby, your youngest, feels the change. She clings more tightly, nestles her head into your shoulder whenever you sit. She doesn't know what's coming, but she feels it. Some nights you wake choking on your own breath. The pain in your hips is growing worse. When you lie down, it feels like your spine has turned to hot iron. Your hands swell, your ankles crack, and still no rest. You begin preparing, quietly. One extra shift for the baby, cloths for bleeding, herbs that might ease the pain. You even stitch your own name into a corner of the linen, not because you think anyone will see it, but because part of you wants to be remembered. Even if it's just a few crooked letters pressed into bloodied cloth. The midwife visits more often now. She watches you carefully, counts the days, presses your belly, with gentle but certain fingers. She says little, but her eyes are worried. Too close, she says once. Too soon after the last one. The body doesn't have time to heal. You already knew that. You feel it in your bones. You feel it in the dreams. You can't seem to stop having the ones where you're giving birth in a darkened field alone, screaming, and no one hears you. You try to ready your daughter for what might come. You teach her how to wrap the baby, how to keep the fire lit, how to check the well when the water starts to taste of rot. You don't say why, you just teach, and she learns, quietly, as if she knows this might be all you have left to give her. The church bell rings one morning. A neighbor has died in childbirth. You didn't know her well, she was from a hamlet down the hill, but the cry still lands like a fist in your chest. You can't help imagining her face, her final moments. Was she afraid? Did she know it was coming? Did she scream? You tell yourself you won't be next, but you don't believe it. Your belly is huge now. The baby moves constantly, and sometimes you can feel the shape of a foot, an elbow, a head pressing just beneath your skin like a creature trapped under ice. It should be beautiful. It isn't. You love the child already deeply, but you also resent what it might cost you. You resent your own body for not being able to say no. You resent the world for making that a sin. Sometimes you sit in the doorway and stare at the moon. You think about the old stories, the ones where women could shapeshift, become wolves or birds or shadows. You imagine flying away, leaving your body just for a night, just long enough to feel what it means to be free. But the baby kicks, and you're pulled back, always back. You don't mark the weeks anymore. Time is a blur of pain and preparation. The midwife tells you it will be soon, maybe days, Maybe a week, your belly has dropped. The cramps are starting again. You watch the snow fall in clumps from the eaves and wonder, will this be the last time I see winter? Will I survive this again? Will my daughter, you touch your belly? You speak to the baby. You better be ready, because I'm not. The night it begins, there are no signs, no blood, no sharp warning, just a tightening, a low twisting ache that coils beneath your belly like a snake, steady and insistent. You breathe through it. Tell yourself it's false labor. Tell yourself you have more time. You don't. The pain returns 10 minutes later, sharper, then 7, then 5. By the time you rouse your husband, your breath is already coming in broken gasps. Your thighs tremble beneath you. The baby shifts lower with every wave pressing on nerves that flash white behind your eyes. He runs to fetch the midwife, shouting into the cold. The door slams behind him. You're alone. You lower yourself onto the pallet blankets already laid out, because deep down you've known this would come early. You've prepared as best you could, but you also know that preparation only goes so far. The fire pops in the hearth. Your daughter hovers in the doorway, pale and trembling. You tell her to go. She doesn't. She steps forward, kneels beside you, takes your hand. Her grip is firm. She doesn't speak, but she stays. Another contraction hits. This one nearly breaks you. The pain radiates outward hips, spine, thighs. You grit your teeth. You think you hear yourself cry out, but it's distant like a bird calling from across a frozen lake. You feel like you're disappearing. Then the door bursts open. The midwife enters, breathless hair tucked hastily into her shawl. She sets down her basket with trembling hands and rushes to your side. You hear her muttering, not to you, to herself. An inventory: cloth, needle, cord, thread, wine. She lifts the blanket, checks your progress. Too fast, she whispers. Your heart sinks. Too fast means no control. No time to ease the tearing. No time to position the baby. No time to pray. Your husband stands in the doorway, pale hands knotted. The midwife sends him out with a glance. He obeys. The next contraction knocks the breath from your lungs. Your back arches. You scream. You scream like you haven't since your first birth, when the world taught you just how loud pain could be. The midwife works quickly. Her hands are sure, but her voice is tight. You need to push. Now. You shake your head. You can't. But your body has already decided. You push. And it's agony. Like breaking in half from the inside. Like fire. Like death. Something gives. The midwife checks. Crowns showing, she says. Almost there. You push again. There's tearing. You know it. You feel it. But there's no room to scream. The baby's head emerges. Then the shoulders. Then the rest. A silence. Then the midwife clears the nose, the mouth. A beat. Then a cry. Shrill, piercing, alive. Your body collapses. You can't even reach for the child. You just lie there, panting, trembling, half blind with pain. The midwife places the baby beside you. A boy this time. Slick with blood, screaming like he's furious to have been born. You laugh, or maybe you sob. You can't tell the difference anymore. The pain isn't over. The afterbirth must still come. The midwife waits, watches, presses on your belly. You scream again. The placenta emerges torn but intact. You're bleeding, not badly, not like last time, but it's enough that the midwife mutters under her breath and pours wine over your thighs to clean the worst of it. Your daughter brings towels, water, a basin. She's pale but calm. She doesn't flinch at the blood. She helps the midwife wipe you down. When it's over, she curls next to you and strokes the baby's hair. "You did it," she whispers. You want to believe that you did something heroic, that you overcame the odds, that this is a victory. But it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like survival. Barely. The bleeding slows. You drink the midwife's broth. You drift in and out of sleep, the baby curled beside you like a tiny ember. Warm, alive. Your husband enters and sees you all. You, your daughter, the new baby. His eyes go glassy. He says nothing, just kneels and presses his forehead to your hand. It's a moment. Brief. Fragile. Real. The midwife gathers her things. She's exhausted. She tells your daughter what to watch for: fever, swelling, bleeding that doesn't stop. She tells your husband not to let you rise too soon. You know he won't stop you. No one ever does. Still, for now, you lie still. The baby stirs in his sleep. You watch the fire. The pain lingers dull and deep. But so does something else. Not joy, not quite, but relief. You're still here. The snow continues falling outside, soft and endless, sealing the village in a cold hush that muffles the world. Inside the cottage, the air is warmer, close with the smell of sweat, milk ash, and something faintly metallic still lingering from the birth. You stay in bed longer this time because your legs won't carry you. Not yet. Your daughter brings food. Your husband brings water. And the midwife leaves extra herbs before disappearing into the white. The baby your boy feeds constantly. He is fierce, already rooting like a wolf pup, frowning when he's not latched. His cries are louder than your last. His grip stronger. You watch him sleep sometimes and wonder if this will be the child who outlives you. If you've finally made it far enough to give one of them a real chance. Your body is broken, though no one says it aloud. You feel it in your hips, your wrists, your torn skin. Sitting is agony. Standing is worse. Your womb still cramps as it shrinks back to something closer to silence, and your breasts burn each time the milk comes in. You've stopped bleeding, but the bruises remain along your thighs, your belly, your ribs. They're a map of everything you've survived. People visit in short bursts. They bring bread, a jar of goose fat for your cracked hands, an old pair of booties their child has outgrown. They glance at you quickly, then at the baby, as if saying too much might tip the balance of your survival. No one says congratulations. They just say, "He's strong. That's good." And then they leave. The silence after they go is heavy. Your daughter rarely leaves your side. She changes the baby's cloths. She heats soup. Sometimes she just sits beside you, your feet curled against hers beneath the blanket. She doesn't talk much anymore. Neither do you. Your husband tries, but he fumbles. His love is quiet, made of chopped wood and washed dishes. You see him watching you sometimes, like he's afraid you might vanish in your sleep. You don't know how to tell him that you've already vanished just in pieces, not all at once. Still, you try to stitch something together again. On the fourth day, you walk across the room. On the fifth, you make a weak broth. On the sixth, you lift the baby to your chest without wincing. By the second week, you return to the stream. You shouldn't. The midwife said 3 weeks at least. But there's no clean water in the house and your daughter can't carry both pails. So you do it. The path is icy. Your feet slip more than once. You move slowly, painfully each step, like dragging a wagon behind your spine. But you make it. You break the frozen edge with a stick. You fill the pail. You breathe. The wind cuts through your shawl. You think of all the times you've done this before, pregnant postpartum, bleeding, dizzy. It's all one long season of endurance. And now here you are again. Still alive, still aching, still fetching water. That night, you press your lips to the baby's brow and feel the warmth of him melt a bit of the ice that's settled inside your chest. He breathes evenly. He sleeps with his fists tight, his tiny lashes twitching. You whisper a prayer, though you no longer know who you're praying to. Maybe not God, maybe not the saints, maybe just the wind. You say, let this one live. Let me live. Let this be the last. Not because you don't love them, but because love and survival shouldn't have to be the same thing. Winter deepens. Snow piles on the rooftops like icing, thick and still. The village hibernates. Children stay indoors, mothers wrap them in linen and keep the fires high. You spend your nights nursing, rocking, whispering lullabies. You've begun singing again, quietly, tunelessly, just enough to fill the dark with something softer than silence. You don't cry anymore, not often. The tears come when you least expect them, in the middle of folding cloths, or when you see your daughter smile, or when your son, barely 2 weeks old, grips your finger and refuses to let go. But the grief hasn't left. It's just changed shape. It sits beside you like an old midwife with a tired smile, reminding you that you're still here, still breathing, still bleeding in ways no one sees. You dream sometimes of who you were before all this. A girl with clean hands and wide eyes. You try to remember what she wanted, what she hoped for. But her voice is fading now. Still, you hold the baby. You hum. You mend the torn hem on your daughter's shift. You press your hand to your belly and feel the flatness there, the quiet. The storm for now has passed. But deep down, you know, storms always come back. The storm does return, not in the form of pain this time, but in silence, the creeping, endless kind, Tom, that slips into your bones and settles there. It comes in the form of long nights where the baby won't sleep, where your body aches, but you must still rise, still walk, still feed. It comes in the hollow behind your ribs that doesn't fill no matter how warm the hearth burns. You're not bleeding anymore. Your wounds have closed. Your milk is steady, but you are not healed. No one speaks of what happens after. Not truly. The village nods when you pass, says you look well, that you've recovered quickly. But they don't see the way you wake in the middle of the night, choking on air, the way your hands shake when the baby cries too long, the way you stare at your reflection and feel like it belongs to someone else. Your husband touches you gently now. He asks permission. Sometimes you nod. Sometimes you shake your head. There's kindness in his hands, but still your body recoils. Not from him, but from the possibility. Another child. You know it would kill you. The midwife confirms what you already feel. You've survived more than most, she says. But not again. Not safely. She offers you a sprig of tansy and something else, a root you've never used before, bitter as bile. She explains how to brew it, when to drink it, how to measure the days. She speaks quietly without judgment. She's seen too many women disappear after the 7th, 8th, 9th child. You're at 6, she says. You deserve to live now. And something in you breaks, because you've never believed that. Not really. You believed you had to survive, to endure, to carry and bear and feed. But to live, that was a luxury, a story told in ballads or whispered by rich women behind embroidered veils. But the idea clings to you. You deserve to live. You whisper it to yourself while brushing your daughter's hair, while watching your son learn to crawl, while kneading dough with cracked fingers and aching wrists. You whisper it while standing at the stream, staring down at your reflection. Older, heavier, marked by time and tears, and for once not looking away. Your daughter begins to smile again. She plays with the baby. She hums while washing dishes. You see glimpses of her childhood returning like green shoots after frost. It stings and soothes all at once. One morning she surprises you. I don't want to marry young, she says. Her voice is firm, steady. You pause. Then you say, then you won't. She looks at you like she doesn't quite believe it, but maybe she wants to. Maybe you do too. You start asking for help, not often, but sometimes. You let your neighbor take the baby for an hour. You let your daughter manage the bread while you lie down. You rest when you cannot out of laziness, but out of survival. You notice things you hadn't before. The shape of clouds, the sound of birds in the rafters, the feel of wool warming in your lap. Life begins to bleed back into the corners you had shut tight. But it isn't all softness. You still carry fear. Every twinge, every cramp, every missed bleed sends a ripple of terror through you. When your monthly blood returns, you weep not from pain, but relief. The midwife smiles when you tell her. It means your body is still yours, she says. And you realize maybe for the first time it can be. You begin to walk again, not just to fetch water or gather herbs, but to walk. To feel your legs beneath you. To breathe the cold air and not fear what it means. You take the baby to the hill above the village. Wrap him tightly. Sit beneath the old birch tree and whisper stories to him. Stories about your mother. About the winters before he was born. About how you once wanted to fly. He looks at you with eyes wide and solemn, and for the first time you believe he sees you. Not just a mother, not just a bearer of pain, but you. There are still hard nights. Of course there are. Nights when the firewood runs low and your back spasms and the baby wakes 5 times before dawn. Nights when you feel like you're made of nothing but nerves and noise and tired skin. But there is also peace. Small, hard-won moments of it. The baby learns to laugh. Your daughter learns to sing again. Your husband begins to tell stories by the fire, not loud, but gentle, like a man who's learning to find his way home. And you begin to hope. Not wildly, not foolishly, but just enough. Because though the world hasn't changed and the burdens haven't vanished, something in you has shifted. You no longer pray just to survive. You pray to stay. Spring returns slowly, as if unsure its welcome. The snow melts in clumps, the earth beneath it raw and bruised. Mud clings to boots, and the roads swell with thaw. But still, life begins again. Crocuses peek up between fence posts. Birds return tentative but loud. The village hums back to motion. And so do you. Not as quickly as before. Not as blindly. You move with intention now, with a kind of quiet wisdom that's settled into your bones. Your son clutches your skirts when you walk. He started toddling chubby legs, unsteady but determined. You watch him stumble across the yard and laugh not from delight, but from awe. Because every step he takes feels like proof that your pain made something that stayed. You no longer think of your body as something broken. You think of it as weathered like stone, smoothed by years of rain. It bears the scars, yes, the lines, the aches, the loosened joints, but it's still standing, still here. And that means something. Your daughter has begun helping the midwife, not often just on quiet days. She carries towels, fetches herbs, watches closely. You ask her once if it frightens her. She shrugs. Sometimes she says, "But it matters." You nod. You don't tell her how proud you are. Not yet. You just keep watching. The villagers begin planting again. You kneel in the earth, your palms dirty, your back sore but your heart steadier. You plant cabbage onions, a few stubborn carrots. Your hands know what to do. They've done this for years. But this time you let yourself enjoy it. The texture of the soil, the warmth of sun on your neck, the sense that you're giving something to the ground instead of losing something to it. And in the evenings you hold your son and sing him to sleep the same lullaby you once hummed through tears. Now you sing it with breath to spare. Your husband sits beside you more often now, sometimes in silence, sometimes with stories, sometimes with his hand over yours. He doesn't ask for more children. You're not sure if it's respect or fear or simply love, but you're grateful for the quiet agreement that lingers between you. You've given enough. You think sometimes of the women you've buried, those who bled, who broke, who faded quietly into the ground, without ever being mourned. You remember their names. You light candles for them, and you promise them you'll remember. You'll tell your daughter. You'll teach her that surviving doesn't mean surrender. You sit on the porch one evening with the baby asleep in your arms, and your daughter spinning wool by the fire. You listen to the wind in the trees and the sounds of goats on the hill. There's nothing remarkable about the moment, but it's yours. It's quiet and safe and yours. You wonder what comes next. You no longer think in years. You think in seasons and growing cycles, in full moons and warm soup, and mornings where no one cries. You still wake in fear sometimes. Still count the days until your next bleed. Still feel the phantom ache of the births behind you. But you also wake to the smell of bread, to the weight of your son curled against your side, to the sound of your daughter's voice singing softly as she stirs the pot. You're still healing, but you're also beginning. You've learned how to stay, how to choose softness even in a world that calls it weakness, how to claim your body back slowly, gently in pieces. You are no longer just a vessel. You are a woman, a mother, a survivor, a home. And that perhaps is the greatest thing you've ever built. So now as the fire burns low and the night wraps around you like an old quilt, take a breath, a slow one. Let it settle into your chest where all the tension lives. Let it spread. Uncurl your fingers. Unclench your jaw. You've been carrying too much today, haven't you? You've walked through cold halls and muddy roads, stood beside birthing beds and grave markers, lived inside a story that asked everything of you, and still you endured. Just like she did. Just like women did again and again without reward or recognition. But tonight you saw her. You became her, and you carried her story with grace. So let your breath soften now. Let your shoulders sink deeper into your bed, your pillow, the comfort you've made for yourself. The pain is behind you now. The fear, too. All that's left is the quiet. And in that quiet, the faintest trace of peace. You are safe here. The fire inside you still flickers, but it burns gently now. No longer a blaze, but a lantern, steady, glowing, and kind. A light for you and for the memory of every woman who never got to rest. So close your eyes, if they haven't closed already. Let the hush of history cradle you. Let the echo of her heartbeat fade into yours. You are loved. You are here. And you are finally allowed to sleep.